Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today, oh man, I am so excited to bring you what I thought, I am a purveyor of a good storyline, of trends that we see in the game, things that can span cross or just across kingdoms that aren't always unique or specifically related to one kingdom, but can apply to multiple. Reasonings. Why do players have experiences the way they do? Why are there so many consistencies? And what, if any, are possible solutions, right? What can we learn? What can we take away from these things? So I always love a good read, and this was one I came across. I just thought, let me go through the suggestions channel here on the official RoK Discord. And lo and behold, this is the first one that I ended up reading. And then I later posted on it here in general, which I guess has ended up sparking a little bit of a conversation here. So I had replied to the person who posted, and there's a few people that ended up posting about it. So that was really cool to see. We'll maybe get into some of the comments there, but I really wanted to start with the suggestion and more so the feedback from this player, ehabuossef, hashtag 8689. I should just say the player, wrote up what I thought was a really good POV on what is the average expectation that a individual player or an individual alliance goes in with, and things that can happen because of that. And so we're going to talk about that, and I'm also going to explain a couple things on why this is actually very normal as far as can happen, along with what are things that maybe this player and future players can do differently going forward that will address these and give them higher chances to have a better day-to-day experience playing the game. Because there's really a lot to unpack here. And this is something that I truly believe every single new player or player that has never ran an alliance or cared to do anything beyond just being an average player as far as a member in an alliance maybe has ever done. So before we get started, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell, and of course, if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, hit up the Discord, a link to that in the pinned comment description below. Let me get some agua first. Okay. I think my daughter's done whimpering. For whatever was going on. She loves me so much. Okay. So let's start off here at the top. Player says, I'm quitting this game. No hate towards the community itself or anything. There are many amazing people in this game. My only problem is with the pay to win. I made an alliance which is for free to play, for us to enjoy the game. We picked a good spot with Holy Site and prepared eventually everything. The game was fun in the start, playing a fight which is fair against normal players, winning sometimes and losing sometimes. But with the tactics and freedom, you can win in any battle with teamwork. All of a sudden, a new clan appeared near us. I said we can ally with them. Their power rose from 0 to 10 mil to 15 mil in 2 days. They were pay-to-win Vietnamese players. I said we ally for KVK and work together. They didn't respond. I said that's okay. They are Vietnamese players. As soon as the Holy Site was going to open, I found all their entire team at the Holy Site, flexing and doing laugh emojis. I prepared the entire guild and attacked together. It was a bloody battle where our fortress burnt twice and lost thousands of troops. In the end, because they didn't have border with the Holy Site, we captured it and they gave up. Anyone who was on yesterday night was going to see me saying we won this big battle, but the victory of the war wasn't ours. They spam attacked. I decided to do a 3 a.m. attack and their team on their team because they should be sleeping. Hindsight, they were, coincidentally, they were awake and kept attacking us, and most of us were sleepy. I needed to stay awake for an entire 18 hours, grinding and preparing and drinking lots of coffee. Just for when I decide to sleep a little, then go to the park, I find them attacking all of our castles, burning us and destroying our progress. And attacking our fortress, I had 0 troops, and they had tons of units unlike all ours. Kills were for nothing. They lost nothing. And their power rose 4 million. I'm quitting and all my alliance will do the same. My only suggestion is that the way the game continues is just killing its community. The ones with money are the ones who prevail over the person who plays for fun. I'm quitting this game. Now, there is a lot to unpack here. First and foremost, this goes back to videos that I have talked about when it comes to the overall approach of playing Kingdom Builders, a level of understanding and preparation that goes in to knowing what can and cannot happen. Now, this player, ehabuossef, if I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, then please feel free to butcher me. What I will say is that this player, from how they're writing and what they're saying, to me, seems to be a newer player to Kingdom Builders. And I would say more importantly than that, right, maybe someone who's new to leading an alliance, maybe someone who hasn't played in a lot of kingdoms to see trends and see how these things can play out. But what I will say, and I don't really want to come off as saying this is like the first mistake, but this is the first hurdle, right, that you have to overcome, which is that if you're going to lead an alliance, and this goes for anyone, if you're going to decide that I'm going to start an alliance and I'm going to lead an alliance, you should at least do some research, have an idea on what goes into leading an alliance, and how much time actually goes into leading an alliance. I did a fantastic video that covers this specifically on how to lead an alliance. And for those that are curious, I have to now go to my, wherever it is, where's my resource thing here? Right? So I got this, I'll pop it over here. One moment. Right, so I'll do this, bam. Right, so here's, oops, did I just fast forward to that? Yeah, let's go back. Here we go. I'll just mute this, right? But here's my video on, again, how to lead an alliance, right? Complete guide on leading an alliance, everything you need to know. This is something strongly recommend watching because it'll give you really good insight on everything you pretty much need to know on how to lead an alliance. It is probably the foremost video out there that does the best job out of any other piece of content out there because it goes into the most detail. And so I would say that is a second big thing, right? So one, it's understanding the trends that happen in early Kingdom Builders, because you have to think about this, right? From this person's perspective, and we'll do an example. So if we minus this, we'll pop this open, and you'll see here that there we go. Okay, a little delay, but right, you have to kind of look at it. Okay, so this person started out right zone 1, and who knows if he was, referring to a shrine or, for example, right, again with the holy sites, right? So who knows if he was referring to a shrine or just maybe most likely maybe it was a sanctum altar. But again, most likely he's referring to zone 1. So, you have an alliance that pops up, right? Your alliance is already there. Their alliance pops up a little bit after. This is normal, right? This is just how things can happen. And that's why I would say when it comes to that specific part that this player mentioned about how what it seems to be, they already had some territory built. Another alliance popped up next to them. Right, an example of that would be, let me just find 2 here. I mean, this is an Imp Kingdom, so I'm probably not going to find anything super relatable. But here's an example, right? Like, so say you had this alliance, or here you go. Here's a really good example. Say you had this alliance, or actually, yeah, here's a good one, right? Say you had this alliance pop up, which was green, or I guess yellow, whoever it is, right? And then you had this over here, right, for SLTK and Slug, and you had Slug who popped up first, and then SLTK popped up after you already extended. Let's just in this hypothetical. You already extended over to these 2 structures. That's something that can happen. Remember, the way to approach going into a kingdom is that every single player there does not know the other person, right? You don't know them, they don't know you. What that means is that we can't have this unrealistic expectation that we're reading each other's minds and that we all are going to play off of the visual decorum game of, oh, well, this person is already flagging out there, so I'm not going to build my center fortress near this structure because I want to be the kind, generous creature that will allow for them to have it. Not everyone is built that same way, and therefore we can't have those types of unreasonable and irresponsible expectations, right? We have to have more appropriate expectations going in. So that would be first and foremost, right? The second part here, which is they ended up building up and attacked, bear in mind, again, if you've never played in a kingdom where you're communicating with, let's just say, non-native English speakers, right? I'm sure many of us have felt this way when we've encountered other nativities of players from other regions that speak another language, and just the way that we interact with them and how things can play out. I think when you look at a kingdom in its entirety, one of the things that is almost something that isn't really talked about is if you think about the idea of, well, if you're going to play in a kingdom, would you rather play in a kingdom where everyone speaks your language, or would you rather play in a kingdom where no one speaks your language? This is, to me, is a no-brainer, but it's not really something that the average person thinks about, and so even though you have to think about it. Like if it's your alliance and you're thinking about who are you going to ally with? Are you going to ally with other alliances that don't speak your language, or are you going to ally with alliances that do speak your language, right? And to me, the higher percentage play is that you're going to try and ally yourself with other alliances that speak your language, because it's easier to communicate, it's easier to organize, you can work out logistics easier, you might even be able to do voice calls, which can help. There are just these kind of passive things that go into how you as an alliance leader will interact and decisions you make based on these kind of passive indirect things that aren't usually talked about or discussed or highlighted in a grand scope, but it really is very related. Now, I don't know, obviously, for this Vietnamese alliance, if they had any English speakers or bilingual speakers. More often than not, I usually come across international alliances that do at least have someone that speaks the language for the other. But again, this is one of those things where it's they want the structure, you want the structure. It's a war game. You're probably going to fight it out, and it really comes down at the end of the day to it's kind of the Hunger Games, broski. It is survival of the fittest at times, and even more than that, the most prepared alliance is usually the one that is going to have the advantage going in. And I'm going to touch back and circle back on this in a moment. Then we end up going with, they were at the holy site, they're laughing, even though you were able to connect to it, and they still came back and kept attacking you. Well, yeah, in part, a part of this game is a war, is that there's war and fighting in it. And because of that, usually wars are not necessarily skirmishes. They're more battles of attrition, right? You're constantly going to, if you just think about how KVK plays out, you're having many days where you're fighting constantly. It's just 24/7, and so when you think about what you're going to do in a home kingdom against any aggressor, most of the time, usually nowadays, in new kingdoms, you're typically having more, fast-paced, aggressive skirmishes that typically are not going to be they're not going to be drawn out. You're not going to have some kind of week 2-3 week war in a kingdom. Though they can happen, it is not usually the highest percentage play that will happen. Usually they're more quick fights that will kind of either be overwhelming, or it's just a matter of, someone loses troops and they think it's done because, they don't know that they can retrain troops, right? And just kind of come back, again. And, it's kind of just, you take all the players you have and how many troops you have versus the other team's troops, and then, you're factoring in levels and rallies and et cetera. So those things, commander pairings and who has, strongest versus this, weaker versus that, those are things that'll factor in. But for the most part, a lot of, I don't know if I want to say a lot, but quite a few players will kind of throw in the towel the moment their troops are drained, so to speak, right? Because they can't fight, or they can't really do anything in that moment, or if they can't bulk or fast bulk train troops. And instead, it's more of, think about the long game. It's not necessarily over in that moment. However, in this specific instance, when we then go into saying, okay, well, Fortress lost thousands of troops, right? We did this attack. They came back. They kept attacking us. Most of them were sleepy. And they ended up says here, attacking our fortress. I had 0 troops, so nothing, right? They rose 4 million. He's quitting, right? So the suggestion he's saying is that the game continues, is just killing the community. The ones with money are the ones who prevail over the player who plays for fun. So I don't actually think that's accurate. I do, however, feel that when it comes to anyone that spends money on the game, right, they obviously will have some advantages in areas by being able to progress faster, get back in a fight faster, just to name a few. Though what I will say, and this is probably going to be a hard pill to swallow, because it's going to, the way that I'm going to say it is going to be just honest, and really, really looking at what I'm saying rather than taking it necessarily at face value. So what I said before about having a level of preparation, the example that you just provided is one of the many reasons why I would never go into a kingdom with just one alliance. And let that simmer for a minute. Right. Now that may lead you in the direction of something such as doing jump projects, or just going in to an alliance, to a kingdom with a multi-alliance group. That is really, for the most part, what will always give you the most consistent and high percentage chances of going into a kingdom and being able. Now, let me finish the thought before I double back here. It'll always give you the highest percentage chance of building a kingdom right in the image that you want and being able to set a standard where the day-to-day experience that players are having is better than being in a kingdom that's kind of lawless, so to speak. And it's just, anything goes at that point. There's not really a lot of structure or management or oversight. Now, in your specific situation, where it's one alliance versus another alliance, now these alliances, again, if it's within the first couple days and that's the power you're getting to, okay, that's actually pretty, decent. If you've been playing in the kingdom for a little while, maybe that's kind of low to mid-size or low mid-size power. If so, we don't know how old the kingdom is that this player is referring to. However, those types of alliance versus alliance skirmishes, which are pretty common, especially in every kingdom, no matter what. Usually the big dogs are carving out territory, little resistance. The small to medium-sized alliances might be having more real-time skirmishes or clashes over territory, and that usually happens when, in the early stages of a new kingdom, first week or two for Zone 1. So to me, based on what you're describing, that's kind of what this seems like, just without knowing the age of the kingdom, is my high percentage guess is that this is something where it was one alliance versus another alliance in Zone 1. You guys fought over a structure that just opened. One person won the structure, the other one just kept attacking the players, and then they'll probably go back and capture the structure anytime, right? And then that alliance will quit or disband. And again, one of the things I'll say there is that there's a few factors, right? One, how did you communicate? Was it something where you made an effort to speak in their language? Did you reach out to the leader? They didn't respond. Okay. Did you reach out to the officers? Did you message each officer? Were you using the in-game feature so you could translate messages? Did you just not hear back from any of them? Okay. Well, if you didn't hear back from anyone, then, there's not really a lot you can do at that point. It's more of, you're either going to fight or you're going to reposition yourself to take another structure, right? Because if the communication line is just broken and you have nowhere to go, then you kind of only have limited options at that point. If you are able to get a hold of them, but maybe there's some challenges, right? Then maybe you try to reach out, like I said, to another officer if the lead isn't. If you're not able to efficiently communicate with them. Another option is reach out to someone in your alliance, ask them if they speak the language for that player. That's an option as well. Ask if those players have Discord or something, right? If you're maybe able to conversate or to speak to some of them in that regard for the players that are in that other alliance. Usually we want to try and always do our due diligence to make sure that we're making every effort possible. But in the grand scheme of things, this is one of those situations where, hundreds, thousands of players go into a kingdom wanting to make an alliance. There are serial alliance leader jumpers, restarters, if you will, where the only thing they want is just to run a top alliance, and they'll basically re-roll. They'll start in a kingdom. Maybe they have a group of friends or a small group of people, or they're by themselves. They'll go into a new kingdom, start an alliance, try and recruit as best they can, and try to basically be a top alliance, right? A top contributing or top factoring alliance in a kingdom. And if they don't get it and it doesn't work out for them, guess what? Well, they stop, and though they just wait for the next kingdom to come out, right? And then other people will basically just do it, but except they'll do the jumping version, where they'll basically just re-jump every single time, making a new jumper account, and they'll go into a kingdom, make an alliance like that, and right, because they think to themselves, well, I'm a little bit stronger, so maybe there's a chance people will join that alliance, and they do the same process, right? It's a rinse, wash, repeat. So these are things that happen in kingdom builders, and specifically here in RoK. So, my advice, even though, I definitely understand where you're coming from, what I would say is that the level of preparedness that you went into the kingdom with, and what feels like high/unrealistic expectations that you went into your playing experience with, right, could have been better and more in line, more reasonable. So, this type of a response may not have happened, right, if you knew some of these things just before going in. So, that's my take on it. These are things I learned myself. Everything you're going through, I'm sure other players have gone through, I've gone through. And, for me, instead of stopping to play, I thought to myself, okay, well, what are things I can do to improve? What can I do to ensure, not even ensure, but just give a higher percentage chance of things working out or playing out differently, so I don't keep consistently running into these same challenges? And oftentimes what that usually leads to is that if you want to have a good day-to-day experience, and oftentimes it comes down to what you want as an individual, right? Some players just want to just be in a top alliance and be a part of a kingdom, and they don't want to do anything else but that. Right? You'll have other people who, would love to lead an alliance, but be a part of a group. Some other people are okay just being a member or part of a larger group going in. Some people just want to go in there and be the top player, right? So you oftentimes, sometimes having jumpers that'll just be people that spend money, but they don't really want to kind of associate. They just want to go into a kingdom and be like the top player, right? Or a top 5 player or something like that. So a lot of times it comes down to, what do you want out of your playing experience? Right? Do you want to lead? Do you want to be in management? Do you just want to be a supporter and a contributor of the kingdom? Those are really important questions to ask, because it'll help you kind of define what your view is and what your goals are for yourself on what you want to get out of playing the game. With that being said, I didn't expect this to go as long as it did. However, I hope that everyone enjoyed my feedback and opinions here on the matter. And Ehab, I do hope that whatever game you end up going to play, if you do end up leaving RoK or staying, that you do have a good rest of your gaming experience. And for those that agree, disagree, again, would love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. Please let me know in the comments down below. That's it for me. Until next time, we'll catch you later.